Hello, today I'm very happy to have Somananda in our interview. Somananda is a spiritual yogi and practitioner for the past 20 years. He has lived and studied with his teacher in India and Thailand for several years. He's the founder of the Somananda.org, the renewed international school of spiritual yoga, tantra and meditation. Somananda is teaching across the globe on many continents, and thousands of people have benefited from his authentic teachings of yoga and tantra. Somananda, welcome. I'm very glad to have you here in the interview.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. We always start with the big question. What is yoga for you, or how would you define yoga today?
Well, for me, yoga is something very comprehensive. It is not only a choice of life, it's not only my lifestyle, it's not only what I do on a regular basis. Yoga for me is a very comprehensive way of life, because when I was younger, I was very attracted to spirituality. As a result of that, at some point when I discovered yoga as a spiritual path, I embraced it fully, and I went about studying it in the way that I felt was very authentic, which means I was at some point decided that I want to go and study yoga from the origin of yoga, which is India. I did that because at the time I was working actually as a lawyer, as an attorney in Israel, and as doing that I realized that I was really attracted to spiritual teachings. So I started reading all kinds of books and texts, and I managed to get my hands on very good authentic tantra, not tantra, but yoga books actually. And when I read them, I realized that all the authentic yoga books say that it's very important that not only you read books, but you find a guru or a teacher that will make you understand what it's all about. And because of that, after doing this for a few years from books and doing all kinds of courses, I realized I have to do exactly that and go find a teacher or a guru. So I left behind my work, I stopped working as a lawyer, I sold my car, I gave up whatever, and I left for India, and I did a search in India, and after some time I found a teacher. I found all kinds of teachers, to be honest. Many of them were not exactly what I was considering a yoga teacher. And in another time I would be happy to tell you funny stories of what kind of stuff you can find out there. But eventually, when I did find a real authentic yoga teacher, who is the teacher that I still have until today, and that was 16 years ago, then I immediately committed to a practice with him. I became his disciple. I became a yoga teacher myself, and I spent about 4 years in India studying with him and practicing and teaching yoga and tantra myself. And I say tantra because my teacher is also a tantric master and a meditation master. So naturally, the yoga that I've practiced and that I teach even today is a form of tantra yoga, which I can elaborate on later if you wish. After those 4 years in India, I moved on to Thailand, where my teacher opened his main branch in Thailand of the school that I come from. And I stayed with him there studying, practicing, and teaching for another 6 years. And after that, at around 2008-9, I realized that I want to spread the teachings more in Europe. I simply felt it's the right thing for me to do. My teacher supported that. So I came to Europe and I started doing a lot of workshops and seminars in different countries. When I was invited one day to teach in Estonia, I really fell in love with the country. And I simply became an Estonian resident. And I've taught a lot in Estonia and in various other countries until today. I'm teaching in South America. I'm teaching in many European countries, in Asia, and basically all over the place, which means a lot of traveling, but at the same time, it's a great pleasure to share this knowledge. So that was a bit of a summary of what is yoga for me and my background.
Wonderful. Now you make me very curious. Could you tell us the name of your teacher?
Yeah, my teacher is Swami Vivekananda Saraswati. Swami Vivekananda Saraswati, and that's his spiritual name. And he's been as a yoga teacher and a tantra teacher for more than 30 years.
Okay, okay. Actually, I saw a picture on your website. I think he's not an Indian guy. Or can you tell us a little bit about his past, where he comes from, just to get a little picture why you chose this guru?
Yeah, he's not from India. He's from Europe.
Okay.
Born in Romania, actually, and he was a student in the university in the good old days. We're talking about the early 80s or even before. And then at some point, after becoming an engineer, already when he was a student in the university, he was very attracted to spirituality. And he found a yoga teacher and he started studying yoga and tantra. And after some time, he didn't work as an engineer, as far as I remember, as far as I know his history. Maybe a little bit, I don't really know, but he very quickly went into the spiritual path, and then he continued as a yoga teacher and a tantra teacher in his life. Somewhere in the early or maybe about mid 90s, I think it was, he went to India himself, and then he became a disciple or a student of one of the Indian gurus that he found in India, who was a well-known spiritual figure. And after a while, he became a Swami. He became part of the Swami order in India, where he got his spiritual name, Swami Vivekananda Saraswati. And since then, he had kept on teaching. I met him in India very soon after he became a Swami himself, and I started studying with him. I knew him from the beginning as a Swami, but of course, that was the time that I met him. But since then, he's been teaching a lot in various countries as well. But mostly, the school was in the beginning in India for a few years. But then he decided that a more fitting location would be in Thailand. And this is where the school of my teacher is still there, Agama Yoga, until today. And it's been many, many years now.
Very interesting. And I have to admit, it's kind of different to a lot of other yoga paths I've experienced today. A lot of people doing like yoga teacher training for several months or years. You have chosen to like dedicate, let's say, your life to this path. Let's say provocative. Is it really necessary to do this today, or there are so many speed yoga courses outside? Is it really necessary to go to India to find a teacher, or can I just make this course and get on the same level?
It's necessary if a person indeed wants to discover yoga for what it really is.
Okay.
Which means that, first of all, to really answer your question, we need to acknowledge one important fact. And that is that for most people, there is no real understanding of what spirituality, yoga, or meditation really is. We live in a world today where you have so much information, so much technology. The internet is buzzing with information. People are able to put online whatever they come up with. If it's authentic or not, it's not even relevant. It's overloaded with information. And that makes it that it gives the illusion that we live in a world where all knowledge is a click of a button away, and you can get whatever you want. And that gives a lot of superficiality. Many people do things superficially. And then we have the illusion that if we want, for example, to become more spiritual, to be a yogi, to be a tantric person or something like that, we just do it as if we go to the university or as if we take some course somewhere. And then we learned the information, and now I can declare myself a yoga practitioner. And this is a very superficial approach, because the thing is that most people don't really understand what yoga really is. For example, one of the classic misunderstandings is that most people believe, if you talk to the average person and you tell them I'm doing yoga, most people understand yoga as a form of physical practice, like gymnastics, fitness, calisthenics, or something along those lines. Of course, Hollywood and television and media only confirm this even more to people because they keep promoting only the physical aspect of yoga, that yoga indeed is some form of fitness. And many people take it like that. They think, I can do aerobics, I can do Pilates, I can do some jogging, or I can do yoga. Depends on my style of fitness. And that's how many people think yoga to be. And if you think about yoga that way, then you're right. There's no point in going to India and spending years and whatever. You just do a course, and very quickly you can become a very flexible and very physically oriented person. But if you do that, you actually did not study yoga at all. What you've studied is some form of physical exercise that perhaps has some connection to the ancient yoga teachings, indirectly or directly, but that's just about it. And this is the biggest problem. If we want to understand what really yoga is, and I'm not saying that I have all knowledge or that I am the source of information here. Actually, I studied from teachers who come from a lineage. And the yoga tradition tells us that actually this is the only way to study yoga. Through a lineage and from teacher to student. A guru will teach a disciple. And the yoga practice is not just physical one. The physical part of yoga is no more than 5% of it, I would say. It's actually the superficial part, the outside part of yoga. Yoga goes far, far deeper than that. There are many different dimensions to yoga that most people are not even aware that they exist. And the authentic yoga teachings of India, they come from specific texts.
Okay.
Yoga doesn't come from some modern invention. It's a very ancient system of spirituality, which some date it to be even more than 6,000 years old. There are even some drawings in certain caves, I believe it was in some areas of India, I can't remember the name right now, where they find drawings of people sitting in yoga positions, and it was carbon dated to be about 6,000 years. So it seems that indeed, this is a very ancient system of practice, which is meant not just to make a person flexible or healthy or just to contribute to your general fitness status. Yoga is meant, and this is what really it is a system of spiritual evolution. It is a way to take a human being from a ignorant, and I'm not saying ignorant intellectually, you can be intellectually very smart, but spiritually an ignorant individual, and make that person reach what we call in modern terminology today, enlightenment. You can make a person an enlightened being, and that's what yoga is meant to do. And if you go in with that approach to yoga, and if you read the ancient yoga texts of India, such as the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the Geranda Samhita, the Shiva Samhita, which you'll be surprised how many modern yoga teachers don't even know about these texts. How can you not know where yoga comes from and the original text that's and explain yoga? And that's the problem.
Okay, now I
When
have
you
to
read
ask come up
those,
with this, maybe stupid questions.
yes,
Where can you get these texts? Is this like really a book which is translated in our language? Can I read this?
yes.
Yeah.
These texts are available. They're available in various languages. They have been translated already. Some of them more than hundreds of years ago have been translated to Western languages. And they are accessible. I've got some of them behind me here on the bookshelf. So you can even find them on Amazon.com. The point is that most people are simply not aware of that. And because they don't know that yoga comes from these traditional texts, another one which is very famous is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, for example,
Yeah.
which is a bit more famous. And these texts are there. When you read those texts, you find out that yoga is a very logical, almost scientific system of self-exploration, discovery, and eventually self-realization. And anyone who takes yoga only for the physical aspect, just to be flexible or just to be healthy, I'm not saying that's bad. It's always good to be healthy. But anyone who do it only for that purpose, it's like taking, for example, an iPhone and using it for putting nails in the wall. It will work. iPhone can put nails in the wall, but we all know that you can use it for a lot more than that.
Absolutely. Good comparison. You have mentioned meditation, and I also feel by myself. I also don't do hatha yoga, and I do other like physical things, but I'm very interested in meditation. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Is this like a good way to involve?
Yes. Again, it's very interesting that you asked that because it's another common misconception. A lot of people ask me, you teach yoga, what about meditation? As if it is a completely different thing.
Mm.
And it is not. Actually, meditation is an integral part of the yoga practice and the yoga development. For example, if a person reads the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this text that I've mentioned,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you will find that in that text, actually, Patanjali speaks of the different levels of yoga. He calls it the Ashtanga yoga, not the Ashtanga that you know today, which is a very physical, modern adaptation of this name, which is an abusive name in some ways. I'm talking about the original Ashtanga yoga of Patanjali, because Ashtanga means literally from Sanskrit, 8 limbs. The yoga, the 8 stages of yoga.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When he defined yoga, he categorized it, he put it in a system of 8 levels. And in those 8 levels, he describes, and I can tell you all the levels, from yama, niyama, to asana, to pranayama, pratyahara, continuing there for dharana, which is concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And then stage number 7, just before the last stage, which is enlightenment, samadhi, which is stage number 8.
Mm-hmm.
Stage number 7, he calls it dhyana, which actually is meditation.
Okay.
So according to Patanjali himself, meditation is one of the high stages of the yoga practice. Mm-hmm. And therefore, in yoga, we integrate meditation continuously throughout the yoga practice, and it's part of your yoga success. You cannot do yoga without any meditation.
Okay. Then I have a very simple question. What is meditation? Because I've tried a lot of things, and a lot of people tell me a lot of different things. And I'm kind of confused. I'm not always sure if I do the right thing or if I should change anything. So
it's a good question. And you know, these questions that you're asking me are wonderful, and usually they are an opening for a 1-hour lecture on each topic. But I'll do my best to try and give concise and direct answers to at least give some information about these things. Just like we said with yoga, there's so much misunderstandings today. And you will find that if you ask 20 different yoga teachers what is yoga, you'll probably get 20 different answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very similar when it comes to meditation. With meditation, again, we find that there's a lot of misunderstanding, and different people have different opinions. Some people will tell you that meditation is a way by which you need to express your emotions, to confront some of your dark sides, and you need to scream your anger, you need to dance, you need to shout, you need to do something. And they call that meditation. Mm-hmm. Some people will tell you meditation means mindfulness, the Buddhist form of meditation, where you sit and you need to be mindful and be basically monitor your own mind through using the breath or through using some looking into the pain in the body or similar things like that. Mm-hmm. Other people will tell you meditation means using music. Others will tell you meditation means using mantras. And the story keeps going on, and there's a lot of confusion. In modern times, the confusion is even more worse because a lot of people totally improvise and come up with their own brilliant ideas, what in their opinion meditation is, and then it becomes a complete mess. If I just come back for a second to the origin of yoga, in Patanjali, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he explains that meditation is stage number 7. That already tells us that meditation is a very high level of accomplishment and practice, and it is not something chaotic, confusing, which is open to interpretation and improvisation. Not at all. Mm-hmm. Meditation, like anything else in yoga, is clearly defined by Patanjali. Mm-hmm. And Patanjali gives the following definition of meditation. He says meditation is a controlled expansion of the mind. In other words, mm-hmm. there are various techniques that you can use, from Raja Yoga to Laya Yoga to Kashmiri Shaivism to various other methods by which you can learn to meditate. But these are props which are meant eventually to bring your mind to expand in a controlled manner And I say controlled because you can have completely chaotic expansion of the mind just by taking a drug or doing something crazy, but that will not be meditation. But if you do it in a meditation practice way, you will develop some abilities of the mind, and you will notice that the mind has the capacity to accumulate knowledge even without studying.
That sounds wonderful, very wonderful.
Yes.
The origins which I experienced about meditation was to get rid of all your thoughts, which is for many people who start meditation very stressful actually. They try to not think about things and it often doesn't not work. Um, then I have experienced other things where you are really busy with putting energies up and, as you said, working with mantras and all these things. Um, is it true that meditation should be a form of concentration, or is it that because you said expanding your mind? I'm not sure. Like concentration and expanding your mind fits together. Um, could you maybe give me a clue
Sure.
about that?
Sure. First of all, it's a good comment that you made because another example of how most people see meditation today is that I meditate if I manage to stop all my thoughts.
Yeah. Hmm.
I manage to stop thinking, which I'm not saying is wrong. Please understand. All these things can be very good support for the actual meditation, but it's not the meditation itself.
Hmm.
It is just a starting point. If the mind can stop thinking, then the mind can start going deeper. If the mind thinks, it doesn't work well. The point is this, even according to Patanjali, as I explained,
Hmm.
he mentions that the step before meditation is concentration, actually.
Okay.
And the idea is this, that the mind, first of all, needs to learn to concentrate, to focus. Most people today don't know how to concentrate the mind.
Hmm.
And most people believe that concentration of the mind is something that requires some type of almost external effort. Like, for example, I remember speaking to a student one day from another place, and I was talking to her about concentration and stuff like that. And she tried to explain to me what it is. And I told her, okay, so what do you mean by concentration? By being present in the moment and all that. Then she said, it means to do this. That was it. And I'm telling her that doesn't look like concentration. It looks like you have some physical problem.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a physical thing. The
Mm.
point is that according to the teachings of yoga, from Patanjali to other great yogis like Matsyendra, Gorakshnath, and other great yogis from the ancient history of yoga, they claim or they explain that concentration is the ability to bring the mind to focus on one point. It could be an external object, an internal object, it could be whatever point you choose. But to be able to put the mind on that point and to focus on it without any breaks continuously.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that ability is very necessary because the concentration of the mind is the key to success in spirituality. In fact, according to the yogis, you cannot have any practice of yoga without the concentration of the mind. And that's why the yogis say, even if you do yoga asanas, you bend forwards, you stretch, you do breathing techniques, pranayamas, mudras, bandhas, whatever you choose to do, if you do any of these techniques, but your mind is jumping around like a crazy monkey,
Mm.
which is one of the names in yoga that they call the mind, the crazy monkey,
Mm.
they say that then you are not actually doing yoga because without the support of the mind, it will be only gymnastics. If you do your yoga practice and you're thinking about the shopping mall or chocolate cakes or whatever,
Mm.
then you're not doing yoga. Actually, it is not yoga because there is no yoga without the concentration of the mind. And concentrating the mind is challenging because the mind, by definition, is very chaotic. It jumps around all the time, especially in modern times where we live in a world where there's so much stimulation and advertising and media and whatever else is out there today. You don't live in a countryside, most of us in a very quiet environment.
Mm.
So the mind is even hyper agitated compared to what it was hundreds of years ago. And that makes it that concentration is even more of a challenge. Think about the fact that most people today don't even read books as they used to.
Mhm.
And today, even when it comes to watching videos online, People start making videos shorter and shorter because people lose their attention span very quickly. They cannot concentrate enough. And that shows that if the mind is in such a poor level of concentration, the mind becomes weak. And that's the whole point of the teaching. Take it this way, just one more example to clarify. My teacher used to put it this way, in a more modern style. He says, think of it like this. If, for example, you take a light bulb, and a light bulb works with, 220 volts. That's usually the current in the house. If I will take this light bulb with 220 volts, and I take the same current of energy, of electricity, and I put it not in a light bulb, but I put it in a laser machine, it can cut through steel because it concentrates the energy. And exactly this is what happens to the mind. When the mind is very chaotic, the mind is trying to jump from one place to another, and it becomes very weak because it distributes its energy all over the place. But when you take the mind and you learn to focus it on one point, the mind suddenly gathers all its energy and becomes like a laser. It reaches much more powerful effects. And only with concentration, we can start talking about meditation. Because this is the thing, you see, people don't know what meditation is. They think if I stop thinking, then I'm meditating. The truth is that this is just the amateur level. First, you need to learn to concentrate the mind. When your mind is focused on one point, you're not thinking of anything else anyway. That's the real concentration and non-thinking stage. And then, if you do it long enough time, according to the yogis, and Patanjali specifically talks about it, you will get to a moment where your mind focused totally on one point after a few months, years of practice. It starts expanding by itself without shifting from the point of concentration.
Okay.
It's a little bit like when you throw a stone in the water, and the hit where it hits the water is the point of concentration, but then you have ripples around it. Those ripples are the waves of meditation, where the mind expands in a controlled manner without any loss of concentration. And then you are in a state of meditation. It's a bit abstract, I know, for people to understand, but when you start doing the practice, and if you use the right methods, it's not abstract anymore, it's something you experience for yourself.
Okay, okay. Can you give me a little hint about the right methods? I've heard a lot of like listening to your press, like breathing in, breathing out, talking about pranayama. Is this a way to start this, or where should I go?
Not really. I mean, it's true that there are methods of practice that involve breath. As I mentioned, the Vipassana methods of the Buddhist tradition are very much focusing on that, such as the Anapanasati of Theravada Buddhism. I've practiced this when I was in Thailand myself, in a monastery, and it is useful. It does give good results. The only thing is that the Vipassana type of methods are actually somewhat slow compared to the yogic methods. The yogic methods are extremely efficient and powerful in the way that they teach meditation, and the way that the techniques that they use are much more potent. And the techniques there's a variety of techniques. We need to understand, first of all, what is the traditional yoga for that. In the Indian history and the Indian tradition, we find that there were 4 main paths of yoga. There was Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those are the 4 paths of traditional yoga. Okay. And in those paths, we find that there have been teachings of meditation, some of them very powerful, especially in Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And I teach Raja Yoga as part of the yoga practices that I teach in the Tantra environment of yoga. And there you find that there are methods by which they teach how the mind can concentrate. There are a few techniques that can be used. There are techniques that you can even use from Laya Yoga and Tantra Yoga, certain mantras and sounds that help to center the mind and create a state of meditation. There are techniques from Raja Yoga where you use a lot the third eye. And there are techniques from other traditions, from Jnana Yoga and other traditions, especially from the higher levels of Tantra, like Kashmir Shaivism, which are even more esoteric and powerful. But that's the whole point. I'm guessing that you probably never heard of any of these things, really. Laya Yoga or other. That's not a surprise, because this is what I'm trying to say. So many people today talk about yoga freely and this and that, and they actually don't even know some of the most esoteric, powerful forms of yoga. Because it's true that with the click of a button today, you can get a lot of stuff on the internet, but it's not easy to get the right stuff. And that's why you need a guru. You actually need a teacher. Reading books or reading some articles online or watching a few videos is not the way to go. And that's why you do need to spend years to really go deep into the yoga teachings and development with the right guru. And then it won't be just a superficial course. It's going to be a way to change your life and to bring self-realization, development to the human being.
Okay, okay. You have mentioned the word like a powerful way of meditation. Today I've seen, I was also in Thailand on Koh Phangan, and I saw a lot of yogis trying to do yeah, like finding powerful ways to expand their mind. You've mentioned it before, some people taking like drugs. Ayahuasca retreats are very popular.
Yes.
Some turbo meditation on the weekend. Could you like separate the traditional powerful forms from these, let's say, shortcuts today? Or
Yeah, yeah. As you said, it's exactly that. These are shortcuts, and they're not even shortcuts that take you to where you want to go. Because the definition of a shortcut is why not take it? Because it gets me there quickly.
sure.
But the problem is that it doesn't get you there. It gets you somewhere, but not there, not where we want to go. The thing is that we live at a time, as I said, on this planet where people are living a very fast-paced lifestyle, and people have zero patience. People don't have the dedication, the internal commitment to a certain something that will take them higher, because it requires a lot of sacrifice, personal sacrifice. Like, for example, if I'm telling you I used to be a lawyer, and for 16, 17 years now, I've been living, like a yogi, and I'm not making lots of money, and I'm not doing the things that an average lawyer would do. I'm not driving a sports car or whatever. You would say, wow, what a sacrifice. The guy doesn't have a family, doesn't have cars, doesn't have this. It's a sacrifice. And many people would say, can I still enjoy my regular lifestyle and still be some master of yoga or something like that? The answer is very simple. No.
Okay.
Just like you cannot be a successful cellist or a piano player or something by doing just a weekend course or doing a few courses a year. It won't work like that. It's a matter of dedicating. And most people are not having the energy, the commitment to do that. And that's why people always look for the fast track. We live at a time where everything is fast, fast internet, fast food, fast car, fast sex, fast everything. People just don't have patience or energy to devote themselves to a cause which is truly spiritual. As a result of that, it exactly brings the problem. Then people say, okay, I know that yoga promises all kinds of amazing things. I don't want to put 10 years into this or whatever it takes, 5 years or whatever. Can you just do it over a weekend? If I do an ayahuasca ritual or some other whatever drug or something, if I do that, would that get me there fast? And some people say yes, because, and I've actually met personally people who came to me and told me, I've done 100 ayahuasca rituals and I declared myself enlightened. Why? Just because they did a few ayahuasca rituals. And I'm not doubting that they had a strong experience. I'm not against doing rituals or even using ayahuasca if a person feels that this is something very important for them. But at least realize that this is not a ticket to paradise or something. This is simply a use of certain drugs or certain herbs, in the case of ayahuasca, certain plants, that might open up some energy centers in the body, might create some openness of the mind, but then that will never replace a systemized practice.
Okay.
And that means that you need to let go of these shortcuts and devote yourself to a proper practice. With a proper practice, you can get the same effects and far, far bigger than any ayahuasca ritual, but you get there by your own power and you can get there permanently. And that's the way to develop spiritually, not shortcuts.
Okay, okay. Maybe for the people who have never heard about ayahuasca, I think it's like the most psychoactive plant on the planet. So you have like...
Never did research on this to really make that statement, but I do know that it can be quite potent, yes.
Okay. but is it maybe a chance for people to get a glimpse of what they could reach without taking drugs? I know it's very yeah, it's very dangerous to say, okay, I can reach it with this shortcut, but yeah, as you said, I think for a lot of people it's hard to decide to go this very dedicated way for a lot of years if they cannot really understand what they will expect then.
It's a very valid point, and you're absolutely right. First of all, just to answer the second part of your statement or question, people don't have to devote 10 years of their lives to get results. Today, it is possible to actually do courses and do a way of teaching or studying yoga combined with your daily life and with other things, only that then you need to understand what you're doing and follow a teaching that can help you to get to the right place. Not to follow teachings which are superficial to begin with. That's why I'm saying, for example, otherwise what I would teach would be useless. I would tell everybody, no need to come study with me. Just go to India for 15 years and only then you can get results. But that's not the case, of course. I bring the teachings the way that I've studied them in the West. And I have many students, I've got thousands of students that come to various courses that I do. 1 week course, 10-day course, meditation retreats for 10 days or 1 week, and yoga retreats and so on, and they simply manage to put a very condensed period of time of 10 days or something where they make a lot of progress, and then they go and they take care of their work, family, whatever, and then they come back again. So it still can work as long as the teachings are authentic and it is not some modern improvisation of someone. Because we need to understand yoga authentically, properly from the ancient times worked and guarantees result because those who created yoga were enlightened beings and they knew what system they created. And if an average guy today or somebody who is just very creative decides to create their own style of yoga, with all due respect to the creativity, that's not an enlightened being. And then what you study with that person can be like a Russian roulette. You don't know where it's going to lead. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't work, and it can be very confusing. And addressing what you said earlier, remind me, you were talking about something else. What was it?
I was talking about that maybe for some people it's a good thing to get a glimpse through a shortcut to say, okay, now I know what I could reach when I go the step-by-step yoga way.
I was going into my explanation and I forgot for a second what you asked. Yes, it's a good point, and I definitely agree that the ayahuasca type of practice may sometimes indeed bring some openings and even some beneficial things for people. But we need to remember one thing, and that is that when you go to any ayahuasca ritual or using some substances one way or another, natural or not natural, you still bring who you are to that situation. You bring your luggage, you bring your impurities, you bring your personality, you bring whoever you are. And then that's what you come to the ritual or to the practice with. And depending very much on your structure, energetically, what is your condition of your chakras, how open you are or not, that will determine a lot what kind of an experience you will have in that ritual type of thing. Some people have a good experience one day, then they do a ritual again and they have a bad experience. And this is very inconsistent, and it's not always leading to good results. I know personally, and I've even seen cases with my own eyes of people who tried this sort of thing, and in the middle of the ritual, they've had a very negative reaction, a lot of negative stuff coming up. And that's because for them, it was an experience that brought up a lot of their impurities to the surface, and it could even create some kind of a catharsis or some negative experience. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because eventually it is possible theoretically to use ayahuasca or something, but this must never replace a proper practice where you consistently detox your body through yoga practices, purify the channels of energy, open your chakras the proper ways, the spiritual way, do enough yoga, meditation, pranayama, and whatever techniques. And as the years go by and your body builds up and becomes stronger and more fitting for this, then your body can handle bigger and bigger amounts of energy. which stronger techniques like Kundalini Yoga and more advanced techniques can even take you there. So essentially, those experiences are not really necessary, all these ayahuasca stuff, but at least if a person does want to go there, at least prepare your body for it, do some training for a while, that when you do this ritual or whatever, at least you'll be able to be much more aware of what's going on and use the energy of the plant or whatever to take you in the right direction. Most people, unfortunately, because of the inflation of the ego on the planet today, most people would say, I'm ready. I'm a very clean person. I'm very special. I'm a good person. I don't need that. And I'm ready to go to the ritual immediately. And that kind of an attitude is not humble enough. And it means that the person will experience all kind of chaotic things. Sometimes good, many times not so good. And one thing's for sure, the evolution spiritually is going to stop at a certain level. It's not going to go beyond a certain minimal level.
Now you have mentioned a lot of very interesting words. Let's put it like this. First of all, also from your background, that you have some knowledge when it comes to Tantra, can you tell me what really Kundalini is? Because I also experience a lot of people try to do a lot of things to put the Kundalini up. Like this is the goal. And I have to admit, today I'm not really have an understanding what Kundalini is. So, and if it's good to put it really up or to leave it down or something like this. Can you help me with this a little bit?
Yes, of course. Let's understand first what is the story of Kundalini, because there's a lot of misunderstandings, as usual we see in this field, even with the story of Kundalini. First of all, Kundalini comes from the root word kundal in Sanskrit, which means the coiled one. Because according to the yoga system, they say that in the root chakra of the human being, somewhere in the bottom of the spine, there is an energy which is extremely powerful. It is like a cosmic potential, this energy, and it is coiled. The classic yoga tradition presents it like a snake, which is wrapped around itself 3.5 times with the tail in its mouth. And this is a symbolic representation of an energy which is a potential, but for most people it is not active. It is not active because nature makes it so, because that energy is not supposed to be active unless the person's body is ready for it. It's something which is there as a potential, but when you spiritually develop enough, it is possible to do techniques that Kundalini will wake up and then will become active, but only when the person is ready. And when the person is ready, according to the teachings of Kundalini Yoga, they say that then this energy will wake up and will start becoming more vibrant, more active. As it is becoming more active, it will enter the spinal channel, which is called Sushumna Nadi in the yoga tradition, and it starts rising up this channel. Along the path, it will have all kinds of effects on the 7 chakras, but eventually when this energy reaches the top of the head, where we have the crown chakra, that energy unites with the crown chakra, and as a result of that, the person will enter a state of enlightenment, samadhi. And that's a very technical type of yoga practice, almost like engineering, that will help a person to reach enlightenment. And because of that, it's very attractive. But the question is, how exactly does it work? How do you do it? Should you do it, as you asked? And the answer is you should never do it unless you are ready. And again, because people today are very impatient, then a lot of people would say, I'm ready, I am very good, let me start Kundalini immediately, I don't need to wait. And they try to take all kinds of courses which are calling themselves Kundalini Yoga and allegedly are supposed to wake up this energy. Lucky enough, most of these courses are quite amateur. And because of that, these so-called Kundalini Yoga schools actually do a lot of Hatha Yoga, bhajans, kirtans, and other things, breathing, lots of strong breathing or whatever, and they don't really go into the true Kundalini practices. And that's a good thing because at least people are not challenged too much. Because a person who is full of impurities, did not yet deal with the ego, did not practice to open the chakras and his energy centers, never did any pranayama properly, and never have done the yoga practice properly, if he jumps immediately to Kundalini practices, again, it will be like the light bulb that instead of putting 220 volts, you put 10,000 volts. It's going to burn, it's going to explode.
Okay.
And that's what happens, and that's why Kundalini is not for beginners. For those who practiced enough yoga, pranayama, and the body is ready, ate the right diet, and took care of themselves, then through the practice of authentic Kundalini yoga, they learn techniques when they're ready and only from a guru, how to awaken this energy. And as the energy starts rising and they start having effects of Kundalini, they are always under the supervision of a guru that helps them to correct and to do the practice safely, so there's no accidents. When I learned Kundalini yoga from my teacher, he monitored my progress closely and made sure that I've had good results. And then at some point when I became a Kundalini yoga teacher through my teacher as well, I do the same with my students. Only those who are ready can start slowly get the techniques of Kundalini one by one as their body becomes stronger and they learn how to control this sort of powerful energy.
Wonderful. As you mentioned before, is it necessary to work or to rise the Kundalini to get enlightenment, or is this one way from a lot of ways?
It is necessary. And in fact, sorry, my computer is... Yeah, I'm back with you. And in fact, not only that it's necessary, it's the only way. What do I mean by that? I'm not saying Kundalini yoga is the only way of yoga. The point is that when you do any style of yoga which is authentic, like for example, Raja yoga practice, even if you do Bhakti yoga, or if you do other forms of yoga like Laya yoga or Hatha yoga and so on, all these forms of yoga will generate all kinds of effects in the body depending on the techniques which this yoga form teaches. And those effects are meant to eventually lead a person to enlightenment. Any person that reaches high states of consciousness or enlightenment, either this person comes from Raja yoga, or even if this person comes from mystical Christianity, like saints from Christianity, or if the person is a Buddhist monk who reached enlightenment, it doesn't matter what is the background. Whatever techniques they used, those techniques brought them to enlightenment, and it also awakened their Kundalini, even if they didn't know it.
Okay.
So Kundalini always comes with enlightenment. Only some people use Kundalini as the method, while others do other methods, but Kundalini woke up anyway in their bodies. That's why if you read, for example, the stories of saints from the Christian tradition, through prayer and meditation, they have reached high states of consciousness. When they describe their sensations, these are word per word, the sensations described in Kundalini yoga. Only they never even knew what Kundalini is. They did it through prayer. So whatever you choose, Kundalini will always get involved.
Wonderful. Makes sense. It's actually the first time I get like a comprehensive picture about the word Kundalini, because as you said, there are a lot of confusing definitions, and what I've experienced, I was really not sure if what people are doing, if this is the right way to, or I'm not sure if the goal they're striving for is the right goal. I would love to talk more about this. However, we need to look a little bit on the watch, and there's one big topic which people in yoga or spiritual people talking about all day long, and you have mentioned it before. It's the karma. There's karma yoga outside, and a lot of people are like, oh, I need to look at my karma, so I just do good things all day long, and I don't even use like bad words to not fuck up my karma. So I use a bad word. And on the other side, there are people who say, oh, it's a new trend, who say, this is also not right. You also need to work with your shadow sides. You need to accept your bad sides, your bad karma, to transform it. And I think it's not just me. I think a lot of people are confused. What is right? What are trends? What is marketing? Please give me a little bit about this.
All right.
I'll be very happy.
Again, it's a very big topic, like many of the teachings of yoga. It is part of a yoga branch or yoga path, which is called karma yoga, one of the 4 authentic forms of yoga. And here there is, again, as we see in many topics of yoga and spirituality, a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. Again, people refuse to go to the source, to study the teachings themselves, and everybody speculates from their own opinion, which leads to the confusion. If we want to understand what karma actually is, we need to understand the word. The word karma, which comes from the root word kri in Sanskrit, means action. Therefore, this is the yoga of action. In other words, there is a universal law which is known in all aspects of reality, including even in science, in physics, in chemistry, in biology. This law is known, which is called the law of action and reaction, the law of cause and effect. And this is the law of karma. In other words, we always do actions in life. Unless you are completely frozen, everybody acts. And even if you physically don't move, there are still mental actions, emotions, many other things. And all these activities create results. It creates effects. Those are the karmic reactions to everything that we do. According to the yoga tradition, this happens in our lives, and it also happens in our previous lives, because yoga believes in reincarnation. And that's actually the whole reason for reincarnation, according to yoga. It's the karmic mechanism that brings the soul to reincarnate again and again, because it needs to experience the results of its karma, the results of its actions all the time. And that will never end unless a person realizes that karma is not about good karma, and it's not about bad karma. Karma is action and reaction. In other words, when we act, even if we do good deeds, even if we do bad deeds, of course, you're doing something negative, you get negative results. It's unavoidable. That's the law of cause and effect. You do good things, you'll get good results. Again, the law of cause and effect in action. But the thing is that even if we do, because most people think automatically I shouldn't do bad things, because then, I'll get bad results, and nobody wants bad things in life. Nobody wants to be sick, poor, unsuccessful or whatever. Everybody wants good stuff. But even if you do good things and get good results in response, it is still a form of ignorance according to karma yoga, because eventually our karma is what binds the soul to this reality. Eventually, the whole point of spirituality, either from yoga, from Buddhism, or from Christianity, or wherever you look, the whole point is that we want to go beyond this reality and reach enlightenment, nirvana, freedom, whatever that may be. And to do that, we need to reach freedom from this reincarnation cycle. That's why Buddha himself says samsara, which he calls this reincarnation cycle, is like a prison, he says. It's a prison. And what we need to do is get free from this prison and reach enlightenment or nirvana. And when we do good things, even when we do good things, when we get good results, good karma, we enjoy it. But even a prison which is made of gold is still a prison.
That's a good
And that's why the idea is, this is where all this confusion comes from. What we need to do is learn the art of karma yoga. It is a spiritual path where we learn how to balance ourselves and to act in such a way where we do not produce karma.
And producing karma is like what you said, the cause, or the cause and effect. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. We need to stop to produce this effect.
Yes.
Can you put it like this?
It's true. But the question is, how can you do that? Because nobody can stop acting.
That's the thing.
And that is why the teachings of karma yoga are extremely valuable. And in fact, these are some of the highest teachings of spirituality.
Okay.
And therefore, there is a method by which a human being can learn how to act in such a way which is more spiritual. It's a skillful way of acting by which they do not produce karma anymore. And by doing specific spiritual practices, they also eliminate previous karma. And by doing that, you balance the books, so to say, and you reach to a point that you reduce your karma dramatically and can even bring it to zero. Bringing the karma to zero actually is another way of saying you reach enlightenment. And that's why karma yoga is a path to enlightenment. This is a path not through kundalini, not through mantras, not through other things, not through the body necessarily, like hatha yoga. It is a path to enlightenment by deciphering the karma mechanism. And that's how it works. That's karma yoga. Of course, there's much more to it. The technique is there. All I can do is to conclude, because I know we don't have much time, is to give one hint to the audience who is listening, and that is if you want to understand karma yoga and learn properly how to do it, other than taking a course, because we teach it in our courses as well, I would recommend to read the Bhagavad Gita, the famous text from India, which actually those teachings are presented there by the famous enlightened avatar called Krishna.
Okay, wonderful. One question came into my mind when we're talking about the different ways of paths of yoga, like Kundalini or Karma. Is it necessary to decide that I go like the Karma way or the Kundalini way or the meditation way, or can I do the things together like a holistic way? Or
Yes, actually, the holistic approach is the right approach, and that's exactly what I teach, because we teach both. For example, Hatha Yoga techniques, Kundalini techniques, Pranayama, Mudras, Bandhas, Raja Yoga techniques. Tantra is something which covers all of what we teach, because it's all
we
Tantra.
understand this Tantra is much more than actually yoga. So,
Tantra is a spiritual system that includes various yoga systems and other techniques, including energy, in it. And that's why, for me, being a tantric person, a tantric teacher, because most people, when they hear Tantra, they think it's some form of sex or oriental sex or something, which is a complete misunderstanding. Actually, the tantric teachings show in India that there's maybe 5% of Tantra is about sexuality. That's it. There's so many other aspects of Tantra that deal with energy, with yoga, with meditation, with visualization, with concentration of the mind, and the list goes on. And that's why actually all the teachings I've discussed fall under the tantric teachings of India, at least most of them, and that's what we teach. And that's why it definitely is the way to do it, to integrate all the aspects of karma, of hatha yoga, of kundalini, all of it together in the right way. And that's exactly what we teach. That's why it has to be done under the supervision of the correct guru or teacher.
Wonderful. Makes absolutely sense, actually. I'm very glad that I could ask these questions about meditation, Kundalini, Karma.
I hope it helps. It's very short, but I hope it helps.
Yeah, it gave me a glimpse of what I have to look for. And this is actually what we want to achieve with these interviews, because I can just not speak for myself. I know a lot of people who think they know things, and as you said, there are so many opinions outside, and I think it's necessary to, what you've said before, to understand the roots of all this wisdom, and to go their own way, to evolve. And you've said a lot of very important knowledge and a lot of recommendation in this interview. I will watch it again and again, probably to write down all the names, what you've told before about the authentic teachings. Thanks a lot. This was very, very, very interesting. And I hope that's not just me, or I'm convinced that's not just me, that all the participants in this interview or the viewers will find a lot of information where they can start to involve their own yoga practice. And as you said, you were teaching all around the world, so nobody needs to go to Estonia or to India or to Thailand.
Just check out the website, somananda.org. All our teachings all over the world are mentioned there.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I will certainly do this. Perfect.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to share this with everyone. I hope it's beneficial. And thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much. And have a nice day.
Thank you.